Have you ever wanted to set up a client network that was dynamic in its routing? Well, today we're going to start that process. Hello and welcome to IT Bible. My name's Connor, and today we're going to go through planning a client network. I'm going to use 3 separate buildings, and we are going to use dynamic routing to route between the buildings. So let's get on over to the computer and get started. Before we get started, go ahead and click the subscribe button down below. And if anytime you decide you like this video, go ahead and click that like button.
Okay, so to start out, we're going to be making several assumptions. I have these assumptions posted on the forum post that's down in the description associated with this video. But we're going to design these assumptions as we go. So we're using, I'm using, I'm using my knowledge of an existing network, and then I've built this lab kind of off of that knowledge. So the first thing we're going to need us a pfSense node. So pfSense, I'm going to add it. This node's going to have 8 ports, and we're just going to call this fw-3 because this is going to be in building 3, and we're going to set this as VNC for the console type because I've had issues with Telnet in the past. So let's go ahead and do that here. I'm going to put this guy right here. We're also going to build a extreme switch, ExtremeOS. This is going to be 25 ports to account for the management port. We're also going to set this as VNC, and this is going to be building 3A. And actually, you know what? We can just build the rest of these off of this too. So we're going to have 3 switches in this example. We're going to hit save. And we're going to rename this guy so it's just building 3A. This guy is going, this guy we're going to name to building 1A. And this guy here is going to be building 2A. So now if you've noticed, let's go ahead and make us a shape. To make this look a little nicer, we're going to edit that transparent, make it transparent. We're going to go ahead and say edit it again, transparent, and actually click save. Want to duplicate this guy. And then duplicate this guy one more time. And then we're going to add some text just to keep this all organized. Say building 1 here. We're gonna resize it. Edit it, make the transparent, or make the background transparent. Save. We're gonna duplicate. Duplicate again. Building 2. Okay, so now we have our 3 separate buildings. We're going to go ahead and connect. We're going to go ahead and connect the ports where we want. So building 3A, port 24 is going to go to firewall port 1. So port 24. And then we also have to add a network. We're going to name this CCI, because this is going to be the CCI network. And of course, this is going to be, let's put it here. And this is going to go to port 0 of the firewall. That's not. Sorry, my OCD kicked in a little bit there. Okay, so building 3A, ports 22 and 23 are going to connect to building 1A, same ports. So we're going to go here, 22, 22, save. Same thing again, except 23 and 23. Save. And then buildings or ports 20 and 21 are going to go to building 2A. So we're going to do 20 to 20. 21 to 21. And then building 2A is going to use building or 18 and 19 to connect to 18 and 19 on 1A. $19. So now we have our basic networking laid out. So to use this, we're also going to set up a test VM. So I'm gonna put one in each house or in each building. Sorry. So we're gonna do Linux. We're going to put 2 Ethernets on each one. We're going to make this computer or desktop 4. And VNC console type. And we want 3 of them for now. So name this Okay, so each of these are going to be connected to their associated switch, and they're going to be connected to ports. 0 is going to be port 1, and 1 is going to be port 11, I believe, on all 3 of these. Yep. And it'll make sense as to why here shortly. So port 1. Port 11. And these computers aren't required, nor are they required to be at each house. You can have one that you move, but for the ease of this tutorial, I'm going to have one in each house or each building. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start building 3. Oops. Okay, so building 3 should be started up. So we're going to go to 69 here. So this is the firewall. And we're going to also start build the PC here. And that's 773. I'm going to try to make this available for download. Okay, so for the firewall setup, we're going to say we're not going to configure VLANs right now. VTnet 0 is going to be our WAN. And VTnet 1 is going to be our LAN, and we're going to stop there for now. Wait for this stuff to boot up, and we'll be right back. Okay, now that everything's booted, let's go ahead and log into this VM. We're gonna go into our pfSense box, and we're gonna change the LAN interface real quick. So we're gonna change this to 10.0.0.0 or 254 slash, and then it'll be a 24. And we'll just enter through the next. We don't want to enter a DHCP server on the LAN. We don't want to revert, so we'll just do that. And now we'll take our VM. First off, I'm going to change some settings on this VM. I want it to be 16:9 to, and I want to change it so it doesn't sleep every 5 minutes. So now we're going to go into our network here. We're going to turn off connection 4 for now. We're going to go ahead and set our computer to something static because now we've changed the IP address of our firewall. So let's go ahead with that information. I've had some issues with this VM not working right after IP address change, so I've learned to turn it off and back on again. Remind me later on that. And now we'll wait for Firefox to open. These aren't the most powerful VMs in the world, so they are a little slow. And now we're going to go into our Firewall's web interface. Let's say never save. We're going to run through the setup real quick. This is going to be fw-3 at lab.local. Set up our DNS. Set our time zone. I guess I should have said this a little earlier in the video, but I do not expect this to be an in-depth setup on pfSense. I'm kind of just running through it so that you can get in a quick or in the similar spot as me. And we're going to leave that the same. Admin password, we're going to just change this to test123. And go ahead and reload our config. Wait for it to refresh. And then hit finish. We're going to go ahead and accept the terms. Close. And now we're going to set up a few different things. First off, we're going to go through and set up our aliases for our different networks. So this one's going to be called staff. And it's going to be us network type. So there's our different staff subnets for the different buildings. We're going to go ahead and save those. We're going to go ahead and add another one called voice network. It's going to be the same thing, networks. Then we're going to do it one last time for guest. Sure that all looks right. Hit save again. So everything looks correct. We're going to apply changes. We're also going to add an alias for some ports. We're going to call this guest out going. We're going to add ports 80, 443, and 53. We're going to save that and apply one last time. And now we're going to create our firewall rules. So let's go ahead and go to rules, LAN. Then we're going to add one at the top. We're going to pass LAN, TCP UDP. Actually, let's do this. Let's just do TCP for now. A source is going to be single host or alias, staff network, and we're going to say destination as a LAN address. So staff access to firewall. This way we can access the firewall after we are on the new networks. So let's go ahead and add one more here. Actually, we're going to do two more rules. We're going to say LAN IPv4, TCP UDP. Source is going to be single host or alias, and this is going to be staff network again. We're just going to say any, so staff access to internet. Now these are very these rules are very non-restrictive, but we'll probably end up restricting them further on down the line. So let's go ahead and add one more rule for the guest network. So we're going to say single host or alias, guest network. Then we're going to say other custom, and this will be guest outgoing here. We'll say guest internet access and save, and then we'll throw that in here, save the order, apply changes. So now what we've done is we've allowed staff access to our LAN address, which will be the 10.0.0.254. We've allowed staff network access to the internet in general. And then we've allowed guest network access to only ports. Oops, we need to edit that. To only ports 80, 443, and 53, but we need to make that TCP UDP because of the DNS port in there. Now, ultimately, I'd probably restrict this even further, have some web filtering, something like that set up, but we'll get to that in a later video. So let's go ahead and save that.
Like what you've seen so far? Go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified when the next part of this video gets released.
And now we're going to go install the FRR routing package. So we're going to go to System, Package Manager, Available Packages, and search FRR and install. And confirm. And while that installs, okay, now that that's installed, we're going to go to Services, FR OSPF. And for this, we're going to hit Areas first. We're going to add an area. We're going to set our default area as 0, 0, 0. And this is the backbone area. We're going to leave all of the rest of this the same. And hit save. We're going to go to interfaces, add interface, and this will be the LAN interface. So LAN, and then we'll scroll down here and hit save. Nope, sorry. I forget that you leave blank for default and it still doesn't work. So you hit all zeros there again. And save. And then while we're at it, we'll go to global settings, enable FRR, put our global or default router ID in here. I'm just going to put 10.0.0.254. Master passwords, I'm just going to make password. And you do have to have this set to enable this. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Go back over to OSPF. Router ID 10.0.0.254 again. Enable OSPF routing. And down here at the bottom, we're going to say redistribute connected networks. And then redistribute default and always redistribute. And hit save. If you don't do these bottom two, for sure, you won't have a default route on your routers down the line, and you'll run into issues when you try to connect to the internet. So that's the basic config for OSPF on here. We'll end up coming back to this at some point to look at the status of like neighbors and whatnot. So we're gonna go ahead and close this guy down. We'll go back to our topology. And we're going to go and edit building 3A. So that's 32772 is the port number. So I'm gonna go new connection 32772 connect. Now our default username and password on this is admin blank. We're just gonna go through all the defaults of the setup. So just hit enter until you're to here. We're going to configure SNMP sysname building 3A. That gives the switch a name, so that way when we have multiple open, it's easier to identify which one we're on. And now we're going to create our VLANs. So we're going to do create VLAN, staff, tag 10, description, network. And we're going to do this 2 more times for our voice and guest. So sometimes it does take a little longer. I'm not sure why, but so now we're going to configure our ports. We're going to start off with our ports that we've designated as access point ports. So ports for access points in this house. So we're going to do and I didn't actually have to do port or VLAN 20 because we'll end up overdoing that again here in the next step. So now we're going to configure our normal, like our access ports for the different computers to access. So on this switch, we're doing ports 1 through 10 are going to be untagged on VLAN 10. 11 through 15 will be untagged on VLAN 99. And then 1 through 19 will be tagged on VLAN 20, which is where we're redundant in our steps. I've noticed the ports that, or the commands that are switching the VLANs on them take a little longer to run like that. And then we're going to go ahead and save our configurations so far. So type save, hit Y, and enter. And now we need to configure our default VLAN to start OSPF routing. So what we're going to do is we're going to configure an IP on VLAN 1. So configure. So we want to be on the same network as VLAN 1, which is 10.0.0.30. And we want our 10.0.0, and we want our IP on this one to be 30 with a CIDR 24 subnet. We need to enable IP forwarding. And you'll see this command a lot, so make note of it. Now we need to set our router ID, 10.0.0.30. A lot of people will use like 1111, 2222, but I figure I'm gonna set it as the same IP as the switch's quote unquote management IP. And now we have to add our default VLAN to the area. So configure OSPF, add VLAN, and in this case for ExtremeOS it requires the name here, not the VLAN tag. So the default one will be default. We're adding to area 0000, and we're gonna have a link type of broadcast. And then we're going to enable OSPF. So now if we run show OSPF neighbor, you can see 10.0.0.254 is there. And then if we do a show IP route, if you hit shift and page up, you can scroll. You can see our default route came over as OSPF. And then 10.0.0.24 is our direct route. And then we're also getting a 192.168.1.0 route from 254 from our pfSense box, which the 192.168.1 is the route to my internal network. So we have successfully set up one VLAN on this router to talk with via OSPF. So now let's go ahead and configure our other VLANs as well as configure DHCP on these VLANs. So let's go configure VLAN staff. IP address is 10.10.30.1 24. So we're setting the VLAN interface IP address of 10.10.31. That will ultimately be our gateway. So you can see the IP interface has been created. So let's go ahead and enable DHCP. We're going to do DHCP on ports 1 through 10. VLAN staff. And then let's go ahead and configure our DHCP range. So VLAN. Configure VLAN staff. DHCP address range. Ten dot 10.30.50 through 10.10.30.254. That looks like a good range. Now let's configure our default gateway. So we've set the default gateway as this router. Let's configure our DNS servers. So our primary one, for now we're just going to use 208. And then we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to do secondary 08.67.220.20. And then we're going to enable IP forwarding on this VLAN. So enable IP forwarding VLAN 10. And now we're going to add this VLAN to the OSPF area. Type broadcast. So now, if we go back to our Linux machine here, and if we go to our wired settings here and disable all of our settings here, and again, I've had issues with this VM not connecting correctly back. So if we look back, we have 10.10.30.50. Our DNS has been assigned. Our default route is 10.10.31. And if we refresh this page, which we should be able to get to because we configured our firewall rules earlier, our neighbor is 10.10 or 10.00.30. And you can see our staff network route. So 10.10.30.0.24 is via 10.00.30. Now let's go ahead and run through the other networks. So we're gonna do our voice and guest VLANs this exact same way. I'm probably gonna fast forward through this part, but feel free to pause and go back over as you need. So now, if we go back over to our firewall again and refresh, you can see our neighbors stayed the same, but now we have 10.10.30, 10.20.30, 10.99.30, all going to our router that we just set up. So now, we have our route between here and our firewall setup.
Okay, I know that was a long video and I'm really sorry for that, but we're gonna cut up the video, and next week's video is gonna be smaller pieces of the puzzle where we start adding the other buildings into it. In this one, I wanted to get through the setup of OSPF and just getting the basics down, and with the next two buildings, we'll be able to just tie everything we've learned in this video together and make it work dynamically.